So I'm reading an article on theguardian.com about the Hare Krishna community in Florida, Gainesville, Florida in particular, and the article is about how the Hare Krishna religion is divided over allowing females to become gurus in the religion. So this has been a big controversy since 1978. Should anyone be allowed to become a guru is the first question. Whether they're male or female isn't really the original issue. The leaders of ISKCON after 1978 made a number of gurus, male gurus, and many of them, and some would say most of them, have fallen down and created scandals and have had all kinds of problem. Take, for example, Jayatirtha. He was the guru of England. He was having sex with a follower, and he was distributing the drug ecstasy in England, and he got his head chopped off by a disgruntled disciple because he was having illicit sex and distributing drugs. So Kirtananda's farm was raided by the police. Hansadutta's farm was raided by the police. The Mississippi painting business was raided by the police. There was a murder in New Orleans, which the police said was an inside job. And we could go on here for another hour detailing various crimes and problems that have been going on within the religion, orchestrated by these men gurus, quote unquote. So if the men gurus are failing, why wouldn't the female gurus have the same problem? They would also be failing. And that is because they are not qualified to be gurus. And the founder of the movement, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, never authorized his leaders to make gurus. He said we cannot rubber stamp a guru. A guru is made by God because the guru is empowered by God. It's not that you vote and you, by your votes, are able to empower a person to be God conscious. God consciousness comes from God. It doesn't come from the votes of a committee. So that is the first problem. How can we vote in woman gurus after voting in men gurus has created all kinds of problems. Now another issue is, why are so many devotees in the Gainesville and Alachua area in the first place? They're like refugees from the international society that collapsed. There were many temples all over America, and those temples are empty, and many of the people who were formerly in those temples fled to the Alachua and Gainesville area to remove themselves from the scandal-ridden, problematic issues that were going on in the main society. So they left the temples, they were purged out of the temples, they abandoned the temples, whatever it is, but they're not in the temples, and they fled to a refugee zone of Alachua and Gainesville. But the reason they left, the main reason they left, is they were not satisfied working under these quote-unquote gurus. So making more of these questionable and dubious, what we would call conditioned soul gurus, is not going to solve this issue. It's just going to expand the issue. And even one of the gurus said that in 1986 when they voted in a bunch more gurus. He says the Acharya disease, or the guru disease, is spreading. That's all. So we're already having problems with our original gurus. We're going to make a bunch more. That's going to just expand the problem. Now, another thing is that the founder of the Hare Krishna religion in the United States, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he also warned us many times. He said, you are neophytes. We are laymen, and as such, the laymen have to be very careful not to take the post of guru, because we will then be absorbing sins. Prabhupada said, someone like Jesus can absorb sins, but you cannot. And if you try to do that, you will get sick, you will fall down into scandals, etc. And a number of these people have died because they were overwhelmed by sins, evidently. And some of them are just very, very, very sick. They've had strokes, they've had cancer, they've had heart failure, they've had all kinds of ailments, which is what Prabhupada said. So they're having scandals on the one hand, their health is failing on the other hand, and sometimes when they get sick or they fall down, their followers will say, "Oh, our guru has taken so many sins. Well, let's pray for him to recover from falling down or recover from being sick." But what they don't realize is there's no way to recover from that. If you violate the order of your guru told you you can't take sins, and you violate that order, what's the remedy? Why would praying to God help that? Why is God going to fix you from violating the order? You're not supposed to be taking sins. So if you do take sins, you're going to have to suffer. And Prabhupada said that as well. He said taking sins for a neophyte means he will have to suffer. So they are suffering. So out of the 11 original gurus, all of them, every single one of them, got sick or fell down or died. All of the 11. And now that's starting to happen with the second wave. They voted in a second wave. They're getting sick, they're falling down, and they're dying, and they're getting cancer, and so many things. So they were told not to do this, and they went ahead and did this. So a neophyte is not like Jesus. That's the first principle. Yes, Jesus can take sins because Jesus is authorized by God to take sins. You are not authorized by God to take sins, therefore you shouldn't take that post. So we have said this for a long, long time, that these people are going to be overwhelmed by sins, and they are. Now another symptom is that they just go insane. Some of these so-called gurus, if we look at the artwork of, say for example, Satsvarup Das Goswami, everybody kind of agrees it looks very wacky, it looks very crazy, and his writings are very crazy. He wrote some book, Sanatorium, about a person having sex with his therapist, and that's probably because he was said to be having sex with his own therapist. But anyway, why is the guru writing about a person having sex with his therapist? So it's just insanity. So they're getting sick, they're falling down, and in some cases they are just going insane. Again, that's because Prabhupada had said, you are not qualified to be taking sins, and if you do, it will have a malefic effect. And it is having a malefic effect. So if this is happening to the men, why wouldn't this happen to the woman? Sorry, it will happen to the woman, because they also are not on the platform of a person like Jesus that cannot absorb the sins of others. Now, I was in India, and Prabhupada literally stopped the program one time because people were touching the feet of a couple of his disciples, and Prabhupada stopped the whole program, and he made a big public statement. You should not let people touch your feet because you will be acting as a guru and you will be taking sins, and this will cause you to suffer. Do not do this. So yet we see these so-called ISKCON gurus having their feet washed and so on and so forth commonly. So they're not qualified to be gurus, and why would women do any better? That's, of course, a problem. Now the article goes on to say that there's a big conflict in India, because in India some of the people don't want women to be gurus because that will discredit the religion. They think this will harm the reputation of ISKCON in India, because in India woman gurus probably won't be accepted. And so some of these ISKCON people, they're part of ISKCON. They're part of the legal corporate structure of ISKCON in India. They have threatened a lawsuit. They said that if the main ISKCON body makes woman gurus, they will break away and they will sue the main body. In other words, there'll be a schism, a legal schism. There'll be a lawsuit. So they will break away and they will sue the main body. Of course, the people who are objecting to the female Diksha gurus, meanwhile, they have a bunch of men gurus who are falling down left, right, and center. So they haven't fixed their men guru problem, and all they're complaining about is the woman guru problem without fixing the original problem, that they had no qualified men to be gurus in the first place. So they're not really fixing the root problem. Yes, we shouldn't be making female gurus, but on the other hand, think about it, they're going to be suing their own gurus. Their own gurus are going to be voting in women as gurus, and so let's make a lawsuit to sue our gurus. What kind of religion has to sue their own guru? Doesn't sound like a very bona fide religion. Our gurus are deviating, we're going to take our gurus to court to sue them. Well, that means they're not gurus. So why not get to the root issue? But that never seems to happen. They just bypass that, and they just say, well, gurus are deviating, gurus are making mistakes, gurus are making all these problems, gurus are falling down, gurus are deviating. So on the one hand, he's a person like Jesus, he can absorb sins, he's God's living representative on earth. On the other hand, we have to sue this guy for being a deviant. So how can this be? So this is a contradiction within the religion since 1978. Since 1978, we've had this problem. We have gurus, but we need to censure the gurus, fix the gurus. They had a guru reform, and that was the point of the guru reform. Our gurus are deviating, so we have to reform them, we have to fix them, we have to repair them. So he's as good as God, he's as good as Jesus, but we need to send him to reform school and fix and repair this person for being a deviant. So Prabhupada, the founder of the Krishna religion, said there's no such thing as a guru that needs reform. If he needs reform, if he needs correcting, if he's deviating, if he's falling down, if he's having illicit sex, then he never was a guru in the first place. So they're trying to fix their gurus without just admitting in the first place, no, these people were never gurus from square one. Now the article also describes that there was a child molesting problem going on in the ISKCON society, and that's a fact. Way back in 1980, I said that we cannot have children worshiping conditioned souls as their gurus, because this is going to mislead them. They're going to think that some person who is possibly deviating, or is in fact deviating, is their link to God, is their Messiah. So at that time, Jai Tirtha, the guru of England, was known to be having illicit sex, was known to be taking drugs, and so I protested and said, hey, why are we having the children of ISKCON worship this person knowing he's a deviant? So this was a problem that they knew about right at the beginning of all this. That the children, this is abuse in itself. To teach children that they have to worship deviants as their Messiah is confusing their moral bearings. And in fact, a person has recently asked me, how would I sue ISKCON? He wants to sue ISKCON. He's in another country. I said it's simple. All you have to say is that go to the ISKCON Corporation papers, and you will not find anywhere in the corporation papers where it says that we have to teach children that deviants are their link to God. Okay, so the women of ISKCON need to get a guru certification from the men. What men? What have these men been doing? In 1986, the men of ISKCON voted to reinstate as one of their gurus a person who was known to be having sex with taxi drivers in the holy land of India. So here's a person who's a homosexual. He's paying people to have sex, oral sex, and he's a homosexual. There's all kinds of child molesting going on in his area of control, and they reinstate this person, and simultaneously they vote in more gurus. Okay, so the women are now going to have to get a vote from those same people? So they're not really giving women very much of a long leash here. They're keeping them on a very tight leash. They still have to surrender to those men who reinstate homosexuals as their gurus and messiahs. Simultaneously, the same men have buried Kirtanananda in a samadhi in the Holy Land of India, meaning really they've made him a saint. It's like giving a sainthood to someone. Kirtananda is another person, a homosexual, who apparently, allegedly, was having sex with minors in his motorhome, and he was caught doing that. But let's also not forget that dissenters, people who exposed Kirtanananda for having sex, for having homosex, were murdered. This started with Chakradhari. Chakradhari stood up at a meeting around 1980 and said Kirtanananda is having sex with young men. And so he was murdered. And then later Sulochan said Kirtanananda is having sex with young men. He was murdered, and I would have been murdered because I was working closely with Sulochan. So these are the men that the women have to take a certification from. The men who deify and worship homosexuals and pedophiles as saints. Now think about it. Again, same problem. Children have to be taught in ISKCON that homosexuals and pedophiles are saints who should be buried in a holy spot and worshipped in a holy spot in India. So what are we teaching to the children here? Children are being taught that this is a saintly succession from God. And then to top it off, they had another guru, Gunagrahi, who was having pornographic episodes in his motorhome. He was watching porno and was alleged to have had illicit sex with at least one woman. But for sure he was watching porno, and he admitted he was watching porno. So he's another Messiah. He's another person like Jesus who's absorbing sins. Really? I don't think so. But again, he's made into a saint. He's buried in the holy land of Vrindavan in India. So this is what the men are doing. They find a homosexual, they find a pedophile, they find a porno swami, and they declare that these people are gurus. And then they bury them in a samadhi in India. So now the samadhi of Srila Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON, is also in India. So right next to his samadhi, they put the samadhi of a homosexual and a pedophile. And right next to that samadhi, they make the samadhi of a porno swami. And these are the men that these poor women are going to get a guru certificate from? What kind of certificate is that? So they're not really helping the women out here very much. Let's also not forget many women who protested the child molesting and crimes and deviations going on were just kicked out. They were kicked out the door. They complained about so many problems going on, and they were removed from the society by these men, quote unquote. So what kind of men are they? That is the question. And what kind of gurus are they? That's another question. So, and I personally helped a number of these women. For example, a woman in Dallas, she reported that her children were being molested. And one of the children had his arm broken by one of the aggressors there on the farm where the children were. She told her guru, Tamal Krishna, about that, and he just kicked her out. He says she's got to be out on the street without a penny. After she collected millions of dollars for ISKCON, she complains about child molesting, and then she's kicked out the door. So this is how they're treating women? And women are thinking, oh, this is a wonderful thing for women. No, it is not. And that's just one example. There are many examples. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women, maybe thousands of women, were removed from the society by these men. By these men who are now running the program, the Krishna College program in Gainesville and the Alachua Temple. These same men are running that program. Now, Jayadvaita is one of the people in Alachua, Jayadvaita Swami, J. Israel, and he says their gurus have been found engaged in illicit sex with men, women, and children. Or actually, he says possibly children, but we know that that's not really what happened. We know that some of these gurus were having affairs with minors. In fact, Kirtananda admitted that he was, bringing boys into his motorhome. So what kind of a guru line is that? So this is a chain of gurus going back to God, and in the chain, what kind of links do you have? Well, you have a homosexual link, you have a pedophile link, and so on and so forth. What kind of chain of gurus is that? And recently, the leaders of ISKCON made a list of their guru parampara, and they included a bunch of these people who have fallen down. They have a list of like 100 people, and many of the fallen ones are included in the list. So this is a chain of gurus. All these people are links in the chain. You have a homosexual link, and you bury that link in the Holy Land, and so on and so forth. So anyway, we don't think this is really giving women much of a break. What kind of a break are they getting? They still have to surrender to the same men who caused all these problems, and are still causing these problems. Now, one other thing we would like to mention is that the founder of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada, complained at the last days of his life that he was being poisoned. And we believe he was being poisoned. And there's a lot of evidence of that. We really couldn't detail all of that herein because it would be very extensive. But there's, forensic evidence. And, for example, a tape was made where Prabhupada was complaining about being poisoned. And on that tape, the people in the background are whispering about giving him poison. And this was only found later when the tape was digitally enhanced. And by the way, that tape was enhanced there in Gainesville by a professional audio lab in Gainesville. So we have evidence that the founder may have been poisoned to be taken out of the way to make room for these men to start their worship of illicit sex and deviance as gurus, as acharyas, as messiahs, as people who are alleged to be God's living spokespersons on earth, equal to Jesus, able to absorb sins like Jesus, and so forth. Now, after the New Vrindavan community was raided by the police after Sulochan's murder, you would think that the men leaders of ISKCON would want to remove all of Kirtananda's henchmen for orchestrating this huge criminal empire where there was all kinds of crimes going on, including child molesting. Why would we want to keep the leaders who had that program going on, who were participating in that program, and who were supporting Kirtanananda, and so on and so forth? But after New Vrindavan was raided by the police, and the whole thing was exposed as a criminal operation, the leaders of ISKCON made Kuladri, Devamrita, Tapapunj, and Radhanath the next wave of leaders in ISKCON. They basically reinstated these people as the next leaders, and Radhanath has become a very prominent leader now in ISKCON. But he was formerly Kirtanananda's henchman, main henchman. And there are people, I know some of the former thugs and enforcers from that area, and they told me that Radhanath was helping to pay people to murder Sulochan. At least that's their testimony. But in any case, we do know that Radhanath was saying that Kirtananda is a pure devotee, and we do know that Radhanath has helped in burying Kirtanananda in a samadhi, which means he's made Kirtananda into a saint. So the people who are still saying that Kirtananda is a saint, after he was the leader of a giant criminal operation, which was raided by the federal marshals and all kinds of crimes were uncovered there, that's what they're doing. They're just, they're keeping these same deviants, they're just shuffling them around, but keeping them in the primary post. So by around 1997, a number of the children victims of molesting in the society were starting to commit suicide, and some people were saying we're going to have a suicide epidemic because this was just growing more and more. So I helped with a lawsuit, a $400 million lawsuit. ISKCON was sued for child molesting, and that helped reduce the suicides quite substantially. And of course, the leaders just declared themselves bankrupt in order to avoid paying the victims. But some of the victims got at least something. They got a little bit of a settlement out of this. And they told me that saved their lives, because without that settlement money, they would have got nothing. They would have just landed up out on the street with zero. And yet, although it's very clear that the suicides were stopped quite substantially, there's still some happening from time to time, but not nearly what it was. And we also helped victims get some money, which they direly needed in many cases. We still get a lot of grief from different members of ISKCON saying, oh, you've given the society a bad name. So, they don't even care that people are dying. People are dying, that's fine, that's not a problem. The problem is we don't want to pay money to the victims. We don't want to have a bad reputation. Well, you already have a bad reputation because your places are being raided by the police, and you have so many guru scandals going on all the time. Where's your reputation? What wonderful reputation are you saving here? So I don't really see how this lawsuit gave the society any worse name than it already had at that time. But it shows the mentality that as soon as the victims won the lawsuit, immediately they declared bankrupt to avoid paying. They're always just trying to escape and, shirk their duties to their victims or to the citizens of the society. And now another problem is many members of the society joined when they were young. They're now old people. They're like 60, 70 years old. They have no health care plan. They have no place to live in some cases. Some of them are living in their cars even, and so forth. But there's no funding to help the retired citizens of the society, really. But there's plenty of funding for these gurus. They get unlimited health care, and they go to the finest hospitals, and they ride around in a big Mercedes-type car, and so forth. They have plenty of money. In addition, they sued a breakaway group in India who didn't want to worship these gurus. They wanted to worship Prabhupada. So the leaders have spent something like $20 million suing the breakaway group. So again, there's plenty of money for lawsuits. There's plenty of money to sue people. Is there money to help the child victims? Well, no. We're going to declare bankrupt and avoid paying them. Is there any money to help the retired citizens? Well, no. We have no fund for that either. We do have millions and millions and millions on hand to hire lawyers to sue the pants off of people that we don't agree with. So this type of thing is going on. So again, why would some woman have to surrender to this operation? What good is that going to do them? So anyway, this is just to give a very brief idea of what's been going on. I could go on and on and on for 2 more days about all kinds of criminal type problems that have been going on in this society, left, right, and center, or scandals, or just so many unlimited different grief situations that these leaders have caused to different people. For example, the children who see that they're deifying the leaders of the child molesting guru program, how do they feel? I mean, we have a suicide problem, and then instead of recognizing, wait, we shouldn't be stressing out these victims, they take the leaders of the victimization and deify them. How does that make the victims feel? So that's just, like I say, unlimited numbers of examples that I could go through here to explain what's going on. But just to sum up then, I just want to say that there is no authority from the founder of ISKCON to make gurus. He never said we could make gurus. He said the guru is a person who is inspired from within by God. God is speaking to this person. That's how he becomes a guru. You don't just have a committee and a vote and a 2/3 show of hands vote and you decide, okay, this person is going to be a guru. This person is going to be empowered by us. You don't empower the guru. God empowers the guru. Not a committee. And the founder was very clear on that. He said we cannot have guru by popular vote. That is not how guru is made. We don't have ecclesiastical guru or voted-in guru. None of that was authorized by him. So all of this is a concoction. And the whole root of this is a concoction, and all these different things are just rotten fruits that are manifest from the rotten seed that they put down in 1978 when they declared that conditioned souls are gurus. They aren't. And that is not found in the philosophy. And I do believe that this is legally even fraud. You don't find anywhere in the corporation papers of ISKCON that we should be promoting deviants as God's successors. I don't believe that's found anywhere. I know that's not found anywhere in the corporate papers. So it's corrupting the morals of minors, again, which is another legal crime, in my opinion, to teach children that deviants were, or could be God's successors. That is not the teachings of the Krishna religion. In any case, I hope this helps people understand the situation a little better. Thank you very much for your time.